It's time for WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. Hosted by Frank Wolf from WNYathletics.com and Dick Gallagher from WGRZ Channel 2 High School Sports. Football Weekly is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency in Kenmore, Scroy Financial in West Seneca, Cipriano Realtors, St. Francis High School, CSA Prep Star, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, New York, and Canisius High School. This show is produced by 300 Level Media, LLC.
Welcome to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. This is our third episode. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics. I'm joined again by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports, the legendary Dick Gallagher. It's always a pleasure when he comes in and does this with me. This show wouldn't be anything without you, just so you know. Nobody would watch.
That's probably true. Not my sake, for your sake.
That's right. But anyways, well, last week we wrapped up week 2, and there was a lot of unknowns. After week 1, we met and we talked that there was still a lot of unknowns after week 1. Wasn't a lot of divisional games. Week 2, there were the divisional games, and there's still a lot of unknowns to some extent. But it was a fantastic week. I know that you were at Will North, Clarence, and then you watched it on some of that on Spectrum as well. That has to rank up there with one of the best games you've been at in some time. So Will North with the big win there. On today's show, we're going to talk about that game in depth. We're also going to have Dennis Sarro in from the Connolly Cup in segment 2. He's going to talk about what it takes to be on the committee and some of the decisions that they make when it comes to selecting players at the end of the week for their top performers list. Because, I get crazy emails, why this kid wasn't on, why that kid wasn't on, and Dennis, his email and his phone is littered with comments from people that really just don't understand how it all works. So we're going to explain that, and hopefully people remember before they comment or send a message that's kind of a little distasteful at times. We want to, that committee, they work their butts off to get to as many games and see as many kids as they can, and it's a thankless job. You want to recognize every single kid. You want to recognize as many as you can, but at the end of the day, only 15 make the list. So it is what it is, and just because you don't make it week 1 doesn't mean you're not going to make it week 3. Things happen, but for the most part, every kid gets looked at and will get the recognition when the time is right. So nobody's going to get a scholarship because they weren't on the Connolly Cup top performers list in week 1. But anyways, Dick, glad you're back again. And we talked about that big game a little bit anyways, Will North, Clarence. We'll get into that, but there was a lot of other surprises. Monsignor Martin had a rough weekend. I think only O'Hara was the only Monsignor Martin team that won over the weekend. CSP finally beat Maple Grove in that big Class D game, which I really wanted to get to, didn't make it down. I was at the B3 Classic, Albion and Lackawanna, and that turned out to be a one-sided affair. There was a lot of other games. Maryvale Newport was a blowout. Pioneer. What else can you say about this Mike Rigerman kid who just ran all over Iroquois? I'm going to pass it over to you, and you tell me what your thoughts are from week 1.
Well, I think from week 1, when we started, you take a look, just for example, Dunkirk, that was really dominated in the week 1, and then they go against Tonawanda, and I think last week I said that game might be over by halftime, and all of a sudden it took Quantavas to run 94 yards and 32 seconds left in the game and get a 2-point conversion for them to be able to win. And that's a big win for Joe Kelly and the program because that's been down. Monsignor Martin is surprising. Their overall record is 3-9, and they play a tough schedule. And this week, Aquinas visits Canisius, so that'll be a game of the week for the Monsignor Martin.
Certainly. The team that just beat Canisius McQuaid, they're here playing St. Joe's, I believe, on Saturday. So that's another pretty big game for St. Joe's. They're going to want to start getting, settled in with a couple of wins. Obviously, they beat Bennett right off the top. Section 6 team had a tough loss. I believe they played McDowell this past week, and they scored, I believe, 3 touchdowns. Micah Brown might have had a pass and might have thrown 1 touchdown, and so St. Joe's had a rough game with McDowell. Canisius, they were winning. They were leading McQuaid at one point, 14-0, only to see their 24-21 halftime lead erased. They ended up losing 42-37. Joe Jamison had another very big game for them, but unfortunately they couldn't hang on. Now they've got Aquinas coming in to play at Stransky, a game that was originally supposed to be played at New Era Field, but now it's being played on Saturday. Huge shout out to O'Hara, 41-12 over Section 5 Bishop Kearney. Brandon Broadnax, 3 rushing touchdowns. Jamal Lewis had a touchdown, 91 yards, 2 scores and 91 yards rushing. Jermaine Haynes caught a touchdown pass, 63 yards. So O'Hara got their offense on. They were all on the same page for sure on Saturday. Good luck, good job by them. Timon and St. Mary's both lost. So we'll get a little bit more into the Monsignor Martin maybe later in the third segment. Starting with Class AA Thursday night, Bennett, a rout of Lockport. You probably saw that one coming.
Well, when you have 4 players that rush for over 100 yards, and then if you take the Lockport, it's probably won 2 games in the last 2 years. They're down. Malik Brooks is an outstanding athlete, but he's probably the only one that might even be considered for all Western New York. And they have a coaching change with Trait, taking over, and it's sad to see because Lockport at one time was in the 80s and 90s dominated. They were always competitive, but it just times change.
Yeah, but it's just amazing. Lockport and Niagara Falls, 2 of the largest schools in Western New York in terms of numbers. They can't put out good football teams, so it's you just got to shake your head as to what's going on there. They can't get the kids coming out, and the coach at Lockport that stepped down for Met wants to address that problem. He thinks by going back down to like modifieds and working with those kids and keeping them involved, that might have a positive impact on that program. That's a curveball for sure for him going down, but if that's what it takes to rebuild the program, my hat's off to him.
And Matt Vermette is a class act, and what he's doing with the modifieds will pay dividends.
It will.
Program.
Absolutely. Lancaster 35-18 over Hutch Tech. That was really Gianluca Falsinetti's coming out party. He hooks up with Brian Martin for, I believe they hooked up 4 times in that game for touchdowns. So a very big game for him. Brandon Wingard scored 4 touchdowns, runs of 9-11, 9-11. So that was just a one-side affair there. Tony Trelizio, the Hutch Tech Engineers he was welcomed back into Class AA. So he had a rough one with Lancaster, no question about it.
Well, if you take 2 of the legends, Matt Marshner, who's a junior linebacker, and Connor Mahoney, they each have over 20 tackles in 2 games, and they played a major role with that defense, and they're going to need everything this Friday.
Yeah. Orchard Park, 28-14 over Niagara Falls. Archie Bartolotti catches 2 touchdown passes, had a couple of interceptions to lead the Quakers there. Louis Irizarry, I believe I'm saying that right, had another big week. Just shy of 100 yards on the ground, picked up 2 scores. He might be the story there at Orchard Park. Of course, with that big offensive line, they're seeming to move the ball pretty well in Orchard Park this year.
And they have Pataki, not in the running back, but as a wide receiver, and defensively he's good too. So I think Craig is putting the kids in the right position to win. And you look at those 4 teams every week, they've got tough games.
They do. Going down to Class A1, Jamestown with a 28-14 win over Hamburg. I know that Van Sickle wasn't a part of that game, but we're hearing he could be returning somewhere in the week 6 to 7 range.
Well, he's got an MCL. And Tom Langworthy indicated that it might take 4 to 6 weeks for him to get back. I think, from my experience, the fact that he's a sophomore and he's one of the best players in Western New York, they're better off just letting him recoup. And the kid that came in and replaced him had 111 yards. But if you look at that league now, the 2 teams that should be 1-2, West Seneca West and Niagara Wheatfield. and the Falcons are back big time. And Jordan Parks, every time he's got the ball, he can take it to the house.
They haven't allowed a point yet this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 2 games, but still, they haven't surrendered a point. I agree with you on Van Sickle. If I was Jamestown, I'd think long and hard about shutting him down for the year. He's only a sophomore. You know, they're not handing out scholarships to sophomores these days. So let the kid rest, get back 100%, and come back next year. I believe he's a track star also. So let him sit out the year and get his health back, and that has to be number one, getting the kid's health back. You mentioned West Seneca West, a 42-8. They buried my Kenmore West Blue Devils on Friday night. I felt so bad, but you know what are you going to do? You really can't stop these guys, and I know that Maurice Robertson got into the game, had like a 56-yard rushing touchdown, and Kyle Haydick had 2 very nice touchdown catches. Justin Johnson, I believe, had one. He's just an incredible athlete. Their quarterback Liam Shire had another nice game for the Indians, so they're 2-0. They're just used to winning now.
They have 6 players that are all Western New York candidates, and they don't have a weakness, and I just don't see anyone being able to compete with them. And I mean, there's still a lot of games to play. But when you look at just even Liam and what he's done at the quarterback position, playing defensive end, and then Mike Linsky, he's just a monster at linebacker. And then you take a look at Brian Ball and Kyle Haydish and, a lot of the other players. They're so well-rounded. They excel in all 3. Josh Clifton is one of the best kickers. Yeah. So, to beat them, you're going to have to bring your A game, and the opponent's probably going to have to go A+.
Yeah. I mean, what you want to keep the ball out of their hands, the offense. I mean, you want to keep their offense off the field, but their defense is just as tough to gain yards on. It's tough moving the ball on them.
If you look at all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, and if you're going to grade them after 2 games, they all have A.
Always, I agree. Niagara Wheatfield, you mentioned they won 19-0 over Frontier, a big game for them. They haven't given up a touchdown. They haven't given up a single point all year, so they're looking pretty good. And A2, North Tonawanda, Eric Jancy, they get their first win last Friday with a last-second field goal. Connor Devantier, he had 2 field goals on the day, but none bigger than the game winner. They beat Sweet Home 20-17 to drop them to 0-2. North Tonawanda's 1-1, and they open up their new turf field with Kenmore East coming in on Friday.
That league is weak. If you take a look at what's in 2 games, I think their overall record is 3-9.
Yeah.
And so when you take a look at that, and then you take a look at Eric Jancy, that win last week was his 98. And if you take a look at his coaching staff, and they won, over Sweet Home, when you look at their matchups down the road, they stand a chance of being able to win that league.
It's wide open as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Grand Island, I didn't expect them to beat McKinley. They did. Saturday night, 18-14, a rare Saturday night game in Grand Island, I guess. Sophomore running back Jack Dlugokinski played a pivotal role in that win for the Vikings. I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns. So nice game for him. With Kyer Fields and Tavon Martin, I don't know if they didn't take Grand Island seriously or what, knowing that their quarterback was going to be out for the game. But I expected McKinley to win that game, and they ended up losing 18-14. So McKinley's 0-2 on the year to start the year. Obviously 0-1 in the division, but they need to get serious if they're going to make a run at the A2. As we've already said, that's wide open right now. Star Point, 54-21 winners over Amherst. What else can you say about Aaron Chase? All he does is break records, whether they're his or someone else's.
891 yards and 12 touchdowns in 2 games. And I haven't seen those stats. And if you take a look at it, the records are 2,000, 3,000 yards in a season. And he's capable of doing that.
Sure.
But he also has to play South Park. He's got to play Williamsville South. So the matchups down the road are outstanding.
Yeah, he's got a pretty. I guess you could say he's got somewhat of a soft schedule to start the year. They have Maritime Charter School this coming week, so we'll have to see how they do there. They put up a great fight Saturday against South Park.
They have 4 receivers. 2 of them had 10 catches last week.
Star Point. Which team is that?
Star Point.
Yeah.
Matt Spina, Joe Carlson, Ben. I'll get it. Excuse me. And I'll think of the other ones. But there's 2. But they have 4, and 2 of them Spina and Carlson had 10. And when you watch Aaron, those guys, those kids have worked all year long. And Ben, who's 6'4", his vertical is off the chart. And it'll be interesting when they match up with South Park. That'll be one of the better games.
I wonder if teams come into that game against the Spartans and think, run, because they've been a running team for so long, and not so much anymore with Aaron Chase. If you go back and look at last year's film, Chase got hurt at one point, so you missed some action there. You didn't really get to see him as much. Although I think you only missed the last couple of games, if that. But so they were always a running team. They had the Big Johnson kid last year. For the last couple of years, 28. So they had been a running team. Now, not so much.
But when you're an opponent, you're going to want to run to keep Chase and the receiving core up and line.
You're begging them to run. West Seneca East, another nice victory over Will South, 36-28. What else can you say about Sean Dolak? 16 tackles, a sack on defense, and I believe he probably had a couple of touchdowns. Yeah, on offense, 170 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's just a one-man wrecking crew right now for the Trojans.
And I think he had 16 tackles. His brother John is at ECC, and he's a star. He was out west in New York.
He's a great player.
The genes are wonderful in that family. Your automatic star, running back, their offensive player, and the Trojans have their line back 100%. And so they're going to be very, very competitive. And when they go up against South Park, Starpoint, those two teams better come to play because Jimmy Marino does an excellent job.
West Seneca East is going to come to play. Throw the records out. They don't care. They're going to give you a game.
Yeah, it's called Smash Mouth Football.
I missed that. South Park, I don't think for a second took Maritime Charter or Health Sciences seriously. I mean, it was a sloppy game, a lot of turnovers, but 12-0. That game should have been 12-0 after the first quarter.
Well, if you're missing your 2 top offensive players besides the quarterback, particularly with Clarence Thomas, that's a huge loss. And then you can just see the impact those 2 players not being there, regardless of how the game turned out. And the quarterback has to pick it up and be able just to take over and do better.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? Why don't we come back in segment 2 and we'll finish this in segment 3. I want to bring Dennis Sorrow into the Connolly Cup. Right now it seems to be a good time to take our first break of the show. We'll be right back with WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly.
Hi, I'm Paul Wolf, local independent insurance agent for over 15 years. We represent over 30 insurance companies to try to find the best coverage and the best price for you. We're family owned and operated. We specialize in auto, home, and commercial insurance.
Call the Paul Wolf Agency today at 835-9653 or stop in at 2686 Elmwood Avenue in Kenmore.
The next time your insurance rates go up,
call the Wolf.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf. This segment I'm joined by Dennis Sorrow, the chairman from the Connolly Cup. Dennis, how are you today?
Good, Frank. Yourself?
It's been a while since we've actually had you in the podcast room. Almost a year or longer.
Yeah, it's tough.
At least a year.
Tough, busy man.
Yeah, I know you are. All right, Dennis, how long have you been on the Connolly Cup for?
22 years.
That's a long time. You've seen a lot of great players come and go.
Yes, I have.
I know. A couple years ago, I became a committee member as well and really enjoyed the opportunity to select just incredible athletes for individual game achievements and then being able to weigh in on the final 10 and obviously down to selecting the winner. And it's been a lot of fun for me. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that that know that I do it, and they'll send me these messages, and I know you get a ton of them. Of why didn't anyone see this kid, or how in God's green earth does this guy not get mentioned? There's a lot to it. It's not just having a great game. Someone's got to be there to. Well, you explain. How does it work for the Connolly Cup in getting selected each week?
You got to remember, we have a committee. They do a very good job, and it's all volunteer. So ever since the last few years, when there's so many games on a Friday night now, it's just impossible to cover all the games.
Yeah.
So what we try to do in the first 4 weeks is get out there and see every team if possible. You know, some of these guys work and they got to be in a certain area because they're getting off of work. You know, but we have a good bunch of guys that do a lot of traveling. You know, and it's just a tough thing. And what we do is the committee members will nominate a player, and we'll look at that player, and we have to go with who the committee nominates over anything else because they're out there doing the games. And
there's a lot of factors involved.
Oh, there's a lot. You know, it's opponent, strength of opponent.
Yep.
You know, are they in the area too? Because unfortunately, with the Monsignor Martin League, they play a lot of games out of the area. You know, we can't.
Erie, PA, or Rochester.
Yeah, we can't justify because we don't know. We're not there.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've, especially the last 2 weeks where I had to tell somebody, I said, look, the reason why it's so important to have somebody at the game is to verify when did this player A have the success? Was it against the B team?
Yeah.
Did you pick up 75 yards in the fourth quarter when the starters were gone and the game was out of hand? So it's important to have boots on the ground to kind of verify that, you know, this kid actually is very deserving. He got 4 touchdowns all in the first half of a close game. You know, he made 10 tackles to keep it close, things of that nature.
Well, not only that, you got to remember, too, that some of these schools have kids doing stats. And
yeah.
I think I remember Travis Maxwell from Dunkirk the one year. They had him breaking a record in the third quarter for most yards in a game. And we were doing the stats on the sideline. What the coaches said, nah, he's not close yet. I mean, he's there, but he's not. You know, he's 100 yards off. I don't know where his stats are. So, you know, just to let him know. You know, and that's why we go there. And not only that, we look at their attitude. Are they a team player? Sportsmanship is huge.
It's not always the stats. You harp on this all the time. It's not just the stats. I have seen a number of kids that have turned in exceptional performances just not act like a good teammate. You know, he's using foul language. You know, he's taking penalties, berating officials, berating their coaches. I know a lot of committee members frown on that.
Yeah, and plus they come off do they come off the field and sit on a bench by themselves? Do they help out their teammates? Those are the things that you have to look at. You know, it's not all about the stats. If it was, our job would be very easy.
Yeah. And, you know, you want to remember, this kid that you're nominating is a reflection of the Connolly Cup and everything it stands for.
Yes, 100% right. So it's not an easy job. You know, we don't see everybody every week, so not every kid gets in there. But that's why we want to try to get out. And our committee the last 2 years has done a great job. We saw like 96% of the teams in the first 4 weeks. And then we can start re-seeing players, seeing them against a better team, seeing if they've improved or if they're, you know, they just it's not an easy situation. Yeah. We have after every game, a committee member will email myself up, which goes out to the whole committee, what they thought of the players, if there was anybody that really stood out. And that's done by every committee member. Then we try to get it. I mean, there's weeks you can put 20 guys on there, but you got to be realistic. And, and it's tough.
I wanted to ask you, what are the rules for nominating a player? Then it has to be done by a committee member or a coach. A coach can nominate a player.
A coach can nominate him. We'll look at it, but there's certain people in the media that we know. That know, I mean, we've been around. This is going to be our 47th year. I'm sorry, and they know who we are, and they'll call. I've even had referees. Hey, have you seen this team yet? You know, you got to go look at this guy.
Yeah.
You know, it helps. You know, we get feedback from them, and like I said, if possible, and if there's not the committee hasn't seen enough games, then we take that into consideration. All the time we take. You know, coaches, they send, but, the first priority goes to the games that we're at.
It's not an easy job. It's definitely a thankless job that the guys on the committee to do each week. Again, it is volunteer. You know, that there's players down at Southwestern that need to see, like this year you got Colt Snyder down there. Someone, if we don't have anyone that covers the D's and the C's in the Southern Tier, someone from Buffalo has to go down there. That's a 2-hour drive.
Yes. And
So, you know, that's time away from family. That's your own personal money, your own expenses, going just to go see a kid play for, you know, a quarter, 2 quarters, four quarters, what have you. But and the same thing going up to Wilson or going up to Star Point. It's not around the block.
you know, we always joke about it. It's the only thing you volunteer for. It costs you money every year.
It does. There's a membership dues involved with it.
Membership dues. Then you got, you know, you're on the road. Chances are you're coming out of work and you're stopping to eat out. You got gas and tolls, and you know, I remember one year I went down to Randolph. You know, drove all the way down there. We saw 2 plays that got lightning out, and they called the game. I mean, but that's part of the thing. But we got a good committee that really takes it serious.
How many members on the committee now?
We're up, I think, about 22, but not all of them will vote at the end of the year because you have to see the final players over there, which we, you know, we've been really blessed with getting film from you know, the YouTube from
Huddle and things of that nature.
And a lot of that helps a lot because we can see things and say, hey, we do need to see this guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I have one guy that's been emailing me 5, 6 different players and showing with film, which is great.
Yeah, helps you. Makes your job a lot easier. What kind of role does the Connolly Cup play, you think, in athletes getting recognition at the next level, maybe getting a scholarship or having a college come in and say, hey, you know what, I saw that you made the Connolly Cup. That's a prestigious recognition, if you will. So maybe they come and they see a player. Do you ever have players, you know, say that, you know, it helped me get into a particular college? I know the last couple of winners were already seniors and already committed with Dylan McDuffie already. Wait, was it Dylan McDuffie?
But Dylan went to
Isaiah McDuffie won.
BC.
He went to BC.
Dylan went
UB. And Matt Myers last year was already signed on with UB. So a number of players might already have their future mapped out to some degree. But are there other players like Jehu Kalkrick? I mean, he was a finalist 4 years.
Yes. But, you know, I know this year I did get a letter from UB. They noticed that he was a Connolly Cup. I think he believed he put it on there, but, you know, they wanted to know the logistics and all that stuff that goes on because it's a D1 school. And
for sure.
If you take money, you know, they need to know about it.
Yeah. And they are not awarded money.
No. We just give them a trophy and a jacket.
It is probably the nicest trophy they'll ever win. Unless it says state title on it.
Well, Kalkrick told me about it the year he won it.
Yeah.
He put it in the passenger seat and seatbelted it in for a few months whenever he went out.
He wants a piece of me. He told me I should have came down last week for the game and bring the camera crew. I was already locked into Albie and Lackawanna, which I somewhat regret because it was a one-sided affair.
We actually had one person down there.
You did? Yes. Yeah, you did. So we were covered there, at least from a Connolly Cup perspective. But, Dennis, I really appreciate you coming on and just giving you the opportunity to tell everybody what all goes into the Connolly Cup selection process and to kind of, you know, hopefully that will soften some of the blow and we won't get as many emails, nasty calls and things of that nature at all hours of the night wondering why XYZ didn't make the list for a particular week. But you try to get as many guys on in the first 4 weeks, different players. And
then when we start looking at them a second time, they'll be going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain guys that could be on there every week.
Sure.
And it's, I mean,
there's guys that could be on 10 weeks.
Yes. But it's more about, you know, spreading the wealth, let everybody get a little piece of the pie.
Yeah. The more players you can recognize, the better.
Yep.
You know, it helps the kid out. It gives them a little more confidence. It helps them out. Maybe the next week they go out with a little bit of a little more confidence than the week before.
Like you said, if they have a great game, they deserve to be recognized. You know, not only the person that has a great game every week.
Yeah. Maybe his wide receiver or maybe the running back, and as the case of week 1, maybe his lineman.
Well, you got to remember, too, you got receivers catching them balls from the quarterback.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, Dennis, thanks again for coming in for segment number 2 on WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. Segment 3, I'll be bringing back Dick Gallagher, and we'll go through the games left for next week and maybe a few other games from B and C.
The North End Bar and Grill in Kenmore is the perfect place for friends to get together, enjoy a great menu that includes all the local favorites like wings, roast beef on weck, and the best Friday fish fry in town. Serving daily specials like spaghetti and meatballs, flavorful hamburgers and barbecued ribs, and enjoy 12 beers on tap, including IPAs. The North End Bar and Grill, located at 2692 Elmwood Avenue near Girard. To order takeout or to reserve a table, give us a call at 877-9000 or visit us on the web at northendbarandgrill.com.
Welcome back to our final segment of WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly. Frank Wolf with Dick Gallagher. Dick, I had Dennis in studio for the last segment talking about the Connolly Cup, but we're back at it. We left off talking about the Class B1 schools, and Cheektowaga opened up their brand new facility. That was a beautiful field, and I really like what they've done over there in Cheektowaga. 31-0 rout of East Aurora. Pioneer Iroquois was supposed to be a really close, tough game, so we thought. But Mikey Riggerman got a hold of the football, and you know what he does with it. He just rams it down your throat. Pioneer 42-14 over Iroquois. They're off to a 2-0 start. What do you like so far about Pioneer, other than Micah Riggerman?
One, their offensive line was back. Two, Rinker has got better quarterback, but they play physical ball. And I really think that Maryville better come to play because they're going to Pioneer. And if you take a look at what Riegerman has done, he's like Superman, and he does everything. And he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got a 96 GPA. He benches 300 pounds. And right now, he still doesn't have, my understanding, any scholarship offers, which just, if he was living in the South, he'd have 10 of them.
I know. I believe he's also a wrestler, accomplished wrestler at that. So Pioneer gets by Iroquois 42-14. Iroquois is 0-2. We thought they might be a little bit better given the fact that they were moving down to B, but right now Pioneer showed them that, hey, you're not going to have a say in what's going on in our division just yet. You got a ways to go here. You better get used to us. Maryvale 62-6 over Newport. Rashad Law was dangerous. Zachary Valius, also a senior, had 112 yards rushing. He had two touchdowns. Connor Desiderio had 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter alone.
But when you look at Cheektowaga, Maryville, Pioneer, they're 3 strong B teams. And the question will be, at the end of the year, is one of them out of the playoffs because the way the alignment has happened with B1 really having much more competition than one of the other leagues.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. Medina gets by Springville. Springville's 0-2. Olean rebounds after a tough week 1. They get by Depew 39-29. Albion, of course, we talked about that. Or did we talk about it? 43-8. That wasn't really that close of a game. Eugene Harrison is just a great athlete for Albion. I like the way they played defensively. They forced Lackawanna into 7 turnovers on their first 8 possessions. That was ridiculous. Just a great performance by that entire Albion football team, the Purple Eagles. B3, Dunkirk, we mentioned they struggled with Tonawanda. They had to have overlooked those kids. By the way they played the week before, and I know that there was a lot of stuff on social media how no one was talking about what they just did. I think they beat Eden North Collins, so I don't know why they were so enamored with that victory. They should have won that game, but I don't think they took Tonawanda serious enough. And Tonawanda, they had the lead. They were winning that football game into the fourth quarter.
One of the issues in that league was Burgard. I thought, would be one of the top 3 teams. Newfane beat them 35-8 or 7 on Thursday night.
And Newfane was supposed to have a down year. They lost a lot of kids.
They lost a lot of kids, plus their major offensive players with the quarterback and the running back. But Chuck Nichols done a good job, and he's hung in there, and he's got to persevere because last year was, I think, 12 years or 15 years.
Something ridiculous.
It was the first time they made the playoffs at that time.
Yeah. So, and he's a former Panther himself. Like you said, Newfane won, Fredonia Brockport won. Fredonia Brockton won, and C North, Gowanda Pine Valley, Silver Creek, and Cleve Hill, all with big wins. I was at the Cleve Hill Wilson game. That Javon Thomas, what a game! 3 touchdowns. He could have had 5, but 2 were taken away for holding calls.
There's one key thing with Cleveland Hill this year. Their line is nothing compared to what it's been the last few years.
No.
I was at that game too. And what I think was halftime was Wilson 14-12. And you give Thomas, between Thomas, Wheeler, Dion, and DeMario Grant.
Yeah.
They're the champions. They won a state relay with the 4 of them. When you give any one of them a couple of inches, they're gone.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it now, Southwest is a team that really could come out of the Class C, mainly because they returned so many people. But with Cole Snyder, what wasn't in the paper was that he had, I think, 192 yards rushing and 2 TDs. He had 3 TDs, whereas the 200 yards passing, 223, and I think he had 2.
I like the way that Wilson played Cleve Hill. I know it was only an 8-point game. I didn't see you there. I was there. The only thing I was disappointed, the game was at Maryville, by the way, but one thing that concerned me, the concession stand was closed. I couldn't get a hot dog or a popcorn or even a pop. I couldn't even get a bottle of water.
But look at the positive. You had more money for your children.
Yeah, well, he got taken care of. Trust me. We were there he was with me for the first quarter. I don't want to even get into that. That's anyways, I like the way Frericks played. It was nice to see Wilson play Cleve Hill as well as they did. They may see each other again. You never know.
Well, Steve Frericks is an outstanding athlete, and he excels on both sides of the ball.
He was magnificent all game long. Cassadaga Valley 32-13 over Chautauqua Lake. That they pulled away in the fourth quarter. I think that's a team that could. Dick, before we go, I wanted to talk a little bit about that Will North Clarence game that you saw this past weekend. What did you like about that particular game that's got you still talking about it today?
When it was 3 hours,
yeah.
It was physical. Every kid left everything on the field at the end of that game, and some team had to lose. And you look at the quality of the players, particularly with Clarence and with Jack Putney and John Stevens. The Spartans could not stop them. Yeah. And if you take a look at Williamsville North, Dylan Mann, as well as Dylan Kelly, Scott Hopkins, and it just was an outstanding game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one I really wanted to get to, but I had another assignment. I will see them this week play Lancaster. We'll talk about that one in just a second, but Clarence has another tough one this week with Bennett, who's coming off of a pretty big win. How do you see that game playing out? The speed and of Bennett and those 4 running backs matched up against the Stevens Putney combination at Clarence.
Well, I think it could be a toss-up. When you take a look at the leadership of Stevens and Putney, those kids never quit, and Bennett would need to bring their A game and avoid the penalties and the turnovers to make that game competitive.
I agree with you. I think that's going to come down to who's got the will to win that one. I think it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. I think people will think that Clarence is going to take it to them, and maybe they will. But if Bennett can stay out of trouble, meaning stupid penalties, they have a kicker now, so that will help them. They just can't keep on going for 2 after every touchdown they score. They need that kicker.
There's also an important point, which is there's only 4 teams that are going to make the playoffs.
That's true.
And I have Bennett 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
So then if Bennett upsets Clarence, then you're looking at changing that, and then it makes it every game more important, and even the one with North and Lancaster coming up this week.
So I like the Will North Lancaster game. I will be there, God willing. Are you going to catch that one, or are you going to be watching on Spectrum? Or do you have another game in mind?
We'll see what the weather is. But I tell you what, when you watch it on TV, they get the replays.
Yeah.
And you get your notes, and you're not having people scream and yell, or if I'm on the sidelines, and you're trying to avoid players. And so it is what it is. But as long as you see the game and comment and give a favorable comment.
Definitely a Spectrum game, but they may want to rethink things and get down to Pioneer as they host Maryville. Maryville, the high-flying offense against a very gritty, very tough Pioneer team. You said it even before the season started. This was going to be a much better, much tougher Pioneer team, and you expected big things. Well, I don't think the test gets any bigger than it does this Friday night when Maryvale visits Pioneer. That's a game that, honestly, I'm thinking maybe I will head down there for the first half and come back for Lancaster, Will North second half.
And then what are you going to do? Drive a rocket to get back and see that?
Well, we'll have to see.
Only one other thing with the Class D and CSP
Yeah.
dominating 55-20. When you take a look at that team and how Ty has done in the last 3 years, and those kids come to play, and I don't see Maple Grove being able to beat them. They're going to play. They played last week in week 2. They play again in week 6,
yeah.
and they're probably going to be the 2 teams in the sectionals.
Yeah.
You do not find many teams that play an opponent
It's rare.
3 times.
Very rare. So they're going to get to know each other quite a bit. I still like that Cassadaga team, and see. I'm still looking forward to seeing if they get a chance to play Southwestern or one of those other teams. I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a tough game. Cheektowaga Iroquois, not as big a game as we thought it was going to be when we looked at the schedule before the season. Aquinas at Canisius is a heck of a game. Lancaster beat them last year. Remember, everyone said, who's better, Canisius or Lancaster? And they thought Aquinas was going to be the measuring stick. Well, Lancaster's not going to beat Aquinas. They beat Aquinas.
Well, one thing when you're looking at Lancaster, Williamsville North, Lancaster has not lost a game in 3 years to Section 6 teams.
No.
So that's going to give some ammunition to the
Yeah.
Spartans.
Absolutely. They're going to be ready for that one, no question about it. Of course, we talked about McQuaid at St. Joe's. Jamestown's coming up to Kenmore West on Saturday. I don't know if that's going to be a close one or what. I know Ken West is struggling in Jamestown. I believe they're 1-1 right now. And then Lockport at Niagara Falls should be a heck of a game, but with neither team having a whole lot of great football players coming out for the team anymore, it's really not going to be that impressive a game, I don't believe.
Well, both of those teams are very, very young. They've got a lot of underclassmen, so they'll be stronger.
How does Maritime do this Friday against Starpoint?
Against Starpoint, I think that when you take a look at Aaron Chase and the 4 receivers, and you take a look at the physicality that they're playing, they'll match up very well. And I think that it would take, to me, a tremendous upset. And I know that South Park only won by 12 points. But when it's all up to the kids as far as how they come in to play, or they think they're coming thinking they're going to win.
Yeah.
They've got to play the game to win it.
Exactly.
And if
Starpoint can't take them lightly.
I would take Aaron Chase mainly because when you look at his progression and how much better he is this year than last year, plus the receivers that he has, I don't know how Bennett stops that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey, Dick, I appreciate you coming on again. There's probably a lot of games we're not talking about that someone's going to have a hard time with, but, we only have so long to do the show. But absolutely my pleasure having you in again. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week after another great week of high school football in Western New York. So for Dick Gallagher, I'm Frank Wolf of WNY Athletics. See you next week on WNY Athletics High School Football Weekly.